that the Greater Portland Toastmasters team put together in order for us to grow our membership and actually have a good basis of information for our executive committee, how we run our meetings, how we want to change the climate, and how we want to improve our culture for everlasting. I did join that club in April, and it had just reached its 20-year celebration, actually that spring when I was there. But it didn't take me long to realize that it wasn't on a sustainable trajectory. Through what we call the democratic volunteerism process, I did become the vice president that summer. And learning that role was intimidating and challenging because I was a new member and we had a very small club. 12 months later, I became the president of the club, 2018. And our membership was about, on average, 6 people showed up for particular meetings. And we had guests arrive every month, but I couldn't figure out why people were showing, although I did understand why they were showing, but why they came and left and didn't join our club. When I became president, we also became available to us having club coaches. And it was at that moment, with one phrase, these 2 people changed a dynamic. And they said, it's your club, what do you want to do with it? And up until that moment, I didn't know that was possible. We had an executive team put in place. 7 of the roles were filled, and that was fantastic. So I did make sure that we at least came together as an executive group to talk about how can we shift our culture, and how can we attract new members, and of course, eventually, and became president status within 1 year. The approach is simple, transferable, and repeatable to all other clubs, and that's what I want to talk to you all about tonight. Now, when I first started, or those first 18 months, it was clear I was trying to catch up on what is a distinguished club and that plan. Everything that I was told prior by the mentors, if you will, or the seasoned members of our existing club. And clearly, the club's success is measured by attaining specific goals that we commit through the Distinguished Club Plan. Actually, up until that time, or for a period of time, our club didn't have a DCP, or a Distinguished Club Plan, that was written during the 2 years that I first was a member and then as the Vice President of Education. I wasn't familiar with it, and we just didn't do it. And don't get me wrong, setting goals is important, but it just seemed like we were not member-centric during that 18-month period where we were still a fledgling club. I know that people were coming to Toastmasters to overcome their fear of public speaking, to overcome their fear of networking, and of course, many people had a lack of leadership experience. They all said that when they would come in and visit and say hello and check out our club. But for some reason, we weren't attracting them to come back again, to become a member, to actually how to overcome their goals through our Toastmaster program. So no matter what the reason why people walked through the doors, we all knew that people wanted to learn something to excel in their own life. They wanted to do it as fast as possible. They wanted to do it as easily as possible. And that's what we noted. But we needed to change our culture because we weren't presenting ourselves well to the entire group and also to new members, prospective members, excuse me. So education was clear in the Distinguished Club Plan. We focused on hitting goals. Get 4 of these, 5 of those, 1 of those, particular, how many CCs you get, how many pathways, numbers you get. And now it was important, don't get me wrong, but it was all about the education of just hitting numbers as we thought. And membership was, of course, you got to get 5 or be at 20 to be a successful club, or have a minimum of 8 before you need a coach. The trainings were focused around, and they're important, but they're focused around the TLIs, and not so much focused around training people that actually come into our club. Although, and mind you, when I say that, this is how our club was running itself. It's not a reflection of the entire Toastmasters organization. And administration, we knew that you had to pay your dues on time. And this, basically, these 4 measures are what signify if you're a distinguished club program or not. The thing that we try to flip was, and this is part of what we do, is make this a moment of truth club culture. I mean, I became familiar with what the moment of truth was, and said, this is what really does attract members. And let's not look at the numbers specifically, but at the culture. And so what did we try to do as a group that July when we first met to deal with our club, distinguished club plan? Well, we created written instructions and documented our expectations. These were important because people came in, we didn't know what to do with them properly. We didn't have the proper things to hand them. When somebody emailed us, I want to be a guest, we didn't know how to respond properly. For instance, the vice president of membership didn't have the right tools in front of them to act accordingly, to look like a professional group and not just a club. So we created a communication process of who, what, and when a person will be responded to or communicated to. We developed a 90-day onboarding document with websites, where the roles, what responsibilities that member may have. We also reintroduced the mentor program because we know it takes a village. The next thing that was very important to us was literature. We created information that represents today's Toastmaster program. At that time, we were just transitioning away from legacy and into pathways. And so we needed to know, how do we explain what Toastmasters is all about moving forward to a new prospect? So we created a path. We used what was available and created a pathways and core competencies paper that we used in multiple ways, and I will show you those later. It was what we learned that was unexpected and what things you will learn that are expected. We added these pieces into our membership packet. We also, by developing them, we also used things to develop our club to other members outside of just those that walk through the door. Now, education is important. But the education specifically is not just for the 7 executives. We wanted to make sure that everybody that walked into our club came for a reason and walked out learning something. And how do we educate them? We wanted to make sure that every moment was a teaching moment, and how it was the connection between what they see at a meeting that was related to their real life situations. For instance, table topics. One might think this is a weird thing that we do every other week or once a week. We stand up and for 1 or 2 minutes, we have to answer a question that we're unfamiliar with. But yet, be a panelist for a professional organization that you do, or do a presentation in front of 100 or 250 people, or even the people at your office. And at the end, answer the question completely and deliberately successful. Well, that's what Table Topics forces us to do. Think quickly to questions that we're not familiar with in a succinct manner. And we also did a couple of other things I'll show you later. We created a pathways tracking sheet that I'd like to show you that didn't exist a year ago, but I soon know that it's come about, but I'll show you one example. And create these other special meetings like how to do a good evaluation, and also soon to be a speech writing course that we're going to do at our club. The other thing was membership. We started to adjust our meetings to the member needs. For instance, there was a person that had a very important job interview, and he knew that he had to do a 3-minute presentation. And instead of saying 4 to 6 minutes or it doesn't work in the club, we made sure that we were there for that person to do a 3-minute speech over and over. And so we melded the club into the needs of the members. We also invited guests to participate in the mentor practice sessions with mentees. I'm going to talk to you about that later. And it is a very successful program. So let's look at communication. Remember, I told you, I wanted to start at the beginning by being the president of a club that had 8 members. It was a challenge. But we realized that we were still getting guests come, but we didn't know how to respond to them. And we realized that communication, of course, that's what Toastmasters is. We didn't have a legacy document that the vice president of membership can hand on to the next vice president of membership. And so this is one page, actually it's 2 pages right here on your screen, but this is a 10-page project document that we use when we're communicating to prospects and also our members. First page you see here is logging a guest prospect member into our Google Documents. And you'll see on the lower left side, prospective contact information, and it's the information that we want to track. The date and the name, their email, phone, a contact source, and the follow-up. If you go to the right side, where it says email scripts for guest, prospect, and member communications, I wanted to make sure that whoever was going to communicate to prospective members knew what to write, because sometimes people just get afraid of, what do I send to somebody? What do I say to them? When do I say it to them? How many times should I say it? And so if you'll see here, we created 7 pre-written letters. They're templates. And we use them to communicate to prospects. If you can see, an initial guest inquiry, pre-meeting follow-up, so on and so forth. I'm going to go to the next page. On this page, you will see 3 such templates. The initial guest inquiry, where it says on the top left, communicating, thank you so much for contacting us at Greater Portland Toastmasters. And you'll introduce yourself. And you'll talk the next paragraph about Toastmasters as an organization that does certain things. And then it tells where we meet, when we meet. And in addition, our club president sends weekly emails, so on and so forth. This is what we do. And so what it did is allowed, maybe the president can send this, or the vice president of education, or the vice president of membership. Some clubs may not have every executive fulfilled. So it gave the club a template. The one I like also very well, and I used as the president and the vice president of education, is the one to the right, where it says check-in note from an executive. Ladies and gentlemen, to change the club culture means repeated communication with our members to make sure we know that we care, make sure that we're constantly connected. And so, for instance, I, as the president and vice president, send periodic emails to people that's not so specific of what my goals are, but I'm just checking in with them. How are you doing on whatever they're working on? And we'd love to hear what they have to say. And honestly, it could be a Saturday and I'm going to spend the day with my wife and we'll drive. I'll let her drive and I'll get my iPhone and I will just use the emails from my club, and I'll send out quick emails to all the members, or many of them. And it's amazing the responses that you get that day, that weekend, just keeping people engaged. That's what we wanted to make sure that we did in this process of communication. Remember I talked to you about literature. So these are 2 pages. And this piece here serves multiple functions. This was done last year. We will update it. But of course, when we were introducing people to the pathways, we needed to find and utilize the best way to tell them what is pathways, what do I get for my money, basically. And it shows, of course, and many of you, or hopefully all of you, have seen this document on the left, the 10 pathways, which I know now are 11 pathways, but the dynamic leadership and effective coaching and so on. So when somebody comes to you and say, what is Toastmasters, what will I do? You have this list and says, what speaks to you first? Of course, you will take a survey and it might recommend something else. But of course, it's your choice. And then where it shows the 5 core competencies, these are things that people will grasp and master if they complete and when they complete a particular path. And that is what you get for your membership, for that fee of $80 or $120 something that year. On the second page, our group did something called, what did you learn from pathways from Toastmasters that's unexpected? And so we asked all of our members to send in their anonymous, what they learned. And there are few of them are fantastic and simple. I just want to read 2 of the shorter ones. It said, before I joined Toastmasters, I had an inferiority complex about it. I was wrong. I was surrounded with friendliness and support. The rest is history. Another one, I am always amazed and appreciative of the fun and camaraderie I've enjoyed with my Toastmasters friends, not only in Toastmaster events, but in life. And last, the bottom one, I was thinking this would be a 6-month journey, like taking a college course, listening to people. It is much more than that. The opportunities are vast. The only limit is what you want to give it. And so what we do is I make this piece of paper. When I print it out, its front cover is the pathways. The second piece of paper on the backside is what we learned that was unexpected. And so the front page is what you pay for, but the back page is what you get for free.
Webinar.
Yeah.
Webinar.
It was
Webinar.
Excuse me, please mute yourself. Thank you.
This document, I'm going to talk to you a couple times. This document here goes, I email that to prospective guests that are just wanting to know about Toastmasters. We put it in their packet for those that show up as a guest pack, and use it, of course, anytime somebody has a question about what is Toastmasters and how do I figure out what pathway to select. So this particular piece does so many different things. And in fact, in January, we're going to update all of these testimonials, and we're going to update the number of pathways just to modernize this for 2020. This is something that's a promotional piece that's in development, but we want to create a trifold so that we can start promoting ourselves to other businesses in the area. We're waiting to send it to Toastmasters International for their input on branding and on the information before we start doing a mailer. But I think it's important that all of us should not just wait for the people that knock on our door, but why not try to find a way to knock on other people's door to say, are you familiar with what Toastmasters can do for you, your organization? I've done that in my own company, and I'm working with our HR department and with our corporate trainer. Even though they have modules on training, Toastmasters already has a developed project or product that we can introduce to all of our employees and so on and so forth. So this is something that will be fantastic if we pull this off in 2020. I talked about education and tracking. When I first started at Toastmasters in the Legacy program, we did have the poster boards that were pretty simple to track, but when we flipped to Pathways, it didn't exist. When I went to a training, somebody from Canada actually introduced this to me, and then I modified it for Greater Portland Toastmasters. I've actually since modified this for another club. It's fairly simple. It's an Excel spreadsheet, so it's not difficult to modify for your own club. I have printed it out in large format. I bring it to the club. I also email it to the group, and it's easily, as the vice president, to update my members, their pathway, and of course what level they're at. But it's important that everybody in your club sees this. This is something that was very important in the Legacy program, and now we want to make sure we introduce it back to the Pathways education program. And membership. Earlier I talked about whether we as a group at Greater Portland Toastmasters, if we were member-centric. Meaning, did the membership come first or did the process come first? Right? Did the old traditions, are they first? Follow them, hold them, and the rest will follow. Well, something that I realized as when I was the president, and have done it a couple of times since, is a member speech practice session. It has nothing, it's interesting in that we meet with members outside the club to practice speeches in a totally relaxed and separate format. So I know mentor and mentee a lot of times will do this, but I've in the past have pulled 2 to 3 new members together to do a practice of speeches. And the mentor, myself, I'd have a prepared speech as well. But the whole term, the tone of the learning was relaxed, it was cooperative, of course, and it's a round robin with each member presenting their speech and receiving feedback very informally. And then we run through the speeches multiple times while incorporating all the feedback. And one final evaluation conversation is had, and most of the time everybody walks away with success. But this is a great thing. Here's what's even better. For instance, right now, Greater Portland Toastmasters is talking to a couple of new prospects, 2 people that are ready to come and visit our club. And we have one person that just joined at the last club meeting. And so I'm going to deliberately pull together a speech practice session with most of the new people, and also inviting the guests to this practice session. I thought it was radical at the time. I mean, you're inviting somebody that's not a member into this little network to come and hang out. I have done practice sessions, by the way, at my office. I've done them in trailers at a construction site. It doesn't matter where you do it. We're sitting on dirty, on chairs and dusty floors. It didn't matter. 2, 3 people together, you run through the same thing. You run through your speeches. Everybody shares their feedback. You tell that person to redo their speech. Y'all do your speech over. You share your observations. What's amazing about this is during the process, your guest will actually participate in the evaluations and in the learning. And they will see firsthand how this process actually works for people that are just starting out giving speeches. Because everybody improves when they do their speech once. You say, how about use a hand gesture next time? Or how about look at us while you do a particular part of the speech? Or how about change your voice tonality? All of that is transforming somebody right in front of their eyes. And your guests become part of your club right then and there, in a dirty trailer, in your office, but not in the meetings, because those are intense sometimes. It's all formal. Everybody raises hand, claps, does certain things that they're not familiar with. But in this informal, relaxed educational moment, they said, wow, this stuff really works. And I got to tell you, it's 90% successful for the people that I've invited as a guest to these practice sessions. 4 out of 5 join the club a couple of sessions later. Fundamentals, I'd like to just change because, of course, we know that the fundamentals of a club are going to be the backbone of our executive committee. When I first joined Toastmasters, our membership dwindled to about 6 regular people. Our meetings went something like you signed up for a speech, you took on an evaluator role, and maybe you throw in something like a timer role. And I'm not sure about you all, but that may resonate with some of you in some of those smaller clubs. When we put our executive team together, we just made a commitment that we would engage with the members, we would be accountable to each other, and above all, we would be consistent as executives. The next thing was developing our DCP and post-DCP plan. I know you maybe this will come up in your questions and answers, but it's always a rhetorical. Who has a DCP plan in your club? I did this presentation a couple of months ago, and many people do have it, but not everybody gets their DCP plan together. Here's the thing. Do you set it and forget it, or is it part of your club culture? How do you share it with the entire club? I mean, how do you distribute it? It's a 38-page formal document. If you had 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 members, who has enough paper to print out 20 copies of a 38-page document? Most often we don't. Now you can post it, yes, on your website. Now you're relying on people to make sure you funnel them there. So we couldn't answer those questions ourselves. And so what we did is, actually a person in our group, Stacy Knight, had a great, we created an abbreviated version of a DCP plan. And I want to read something to you. For instance, our club values statement. This is important: to provide expertise and guidance for all members to achieve a high level of education and leadership skills through practice and mastery, to provide a safe environment where members can practice their skills without fear of judgment or making a mistake, to provide encouragement, mentorship, and support for members to continue their quest within Toastmasters. So we as an executive group wanted to make sure that every person knew that about us and knew that that's where I want to be if I want to learn some new things. And of course, we had our training philosophy. And so I want to show you this page of literature right here. This was created by, I had the inspiration, but Stacy Knight had the vision of how to repurpose this page. And it's basically everything somebody needs to know of our club and our distinguished club program. The moment of truth, how we want to run a meeting, how we want to treat our guests. And at the bottom, as you can see, our education plan, our membership goals, our training goals, and our administration goals. They're all there for everyone to see. No need to hide. And this, I will show you on the second page. On the second page, there's a lot of information here, but it's only one slice of paper copied on 2 sides, and it also gets emailed to prospective guests. It also goes into our club packet because we wanted to show people, number one, that we're not just a franchise and just do it our own way. We also wanted people to know that we're clear on our goals and objectives, and they will want to be with that kind of a group. And it's not something to be afraid to hide. Now, organized and prepared. Absolutely important, because when we were young, we were nervous. We have small groups, and we didn't know when new people came in how to handle them, what information to give them. So through support, personalized communication, and investment inside and outside of the meetings and our membership programs, we were trying to do that with our people. For instance, personalized communications, seen as a big part of our club. You see, the president sends out a weekly email to all the members. And there are people like myself, the president and the vice president will send those periodic check-ins I was telling you about. The mentor and mentee, they do what they do. But what do you say to a prospect? Do you send them a copy of your DCP or your testimonial? So what we created was that communication process I talked to you before. But in addition, we created a 90-day member onboarding document. This is about a 10-page program. And I will show you a couple pages in a minute. But this answers mostly all of the basic questions that a new member or guest may have. It sets the tone for expectations, and it establishes the mentor-mentee relationship. In this, we want to make sure that a new member knows what are their expectations, but also we want to make sure that the mentor knows what those expectations are of them. Education and training. Well, we develop workshops, and I told you about those earlier, and I'll get to I apologize. Education and trainings there were two that we've done and one that's on the way. And one of them, of course, is about evaluations. The other one is about table topics. And the third one will be about speech writing. So I want to show you just a quick, what's a personal email? And, depends on who's writing the email. I had one style. Our current president has another style. But it basically will just talk about what's happening in the club and what we're doing in our next meeting and what's happening outside the club. And currently, they gave me a little corner where I do some stuff here and there. This is an opportunity for the president to include prospects. For instance, if someone says, hey, I heard about your club and I'm interested, and that meeting will happen in 2 weeks, well, our president will send this to that prospect too and include them and include their name in the email. Here is our 90-day onboarding document. And again, this is a 10-page document. And it's important because all of those questions that come up, for instance, there are 2 websites that someone has to know right away. It's not intuitive that you know that there's a club website and then there's Toastmasters International website for all of your educational program. But we lay it out nice and clean. And as you can see on the bottom, on the left, in the first 90 days, these are the expectations that we want you to accomplish. Attend meetings, access our website, take the pathways, access both websites for Portland and Toastmasters International, take your assessment, select your first path, be assigned a mentor, participate in your first meeting, continue, so on and so forth. I really don't want to read all that. And then to the right, it talks again about the mentor program, the first 90 days, the first 60 days, and the first 30 days. What those people or new members are expected. And the mentor can keep track as they work through these things to make sure they're on point. The rest of the document will talk about what are some of the roles, well, what are all the roles and what they mean. And they also talk about the executive committee and what their roles are and what they mean. This document goes into our guest packet, because why not tell everybody what we're about right up front? I talked a couple of times about our trainings. This is a typical modified club meeting for speech evaluation. The first person, so we invited Mike Harris to do speech evaluation, and Mike was a distinguished Toastmaster and he did very well in evaluations in some of the contests. And he talked about the glove technique, pathway technique, quick note-taking, and making sure that people realize it's not personal, it's educational. Because being a good listener and being a good evaluator helps all of us grow. If I do a speech and everyone says, wow, that was really great, I don't get anything out of it. Somebody critiques me and say what I could do right and wrong, or what I can then do more of, or what I did well and continue that, I will fine tune who I am as a presenter outside of the club. Now, Tom Dowd did our table topics training. He came in from another club, and he talked to us about message first, story later, prep, the pros and cons, and the 5 W's: who, what, why, when, and where, and then the how, on how to do a 2-minute table topics response. And that went really well. I'd like to do these twice a year. And soon we will do, after the holidays, how to do our speech writing program. I know there are modules, but I'd like them to be customized by the people that do well at these particular tasks. I think people get hung up on giving speeches because they're afraid of how to write the speech. And so I want them to be more comfortable, that they could write a speech in, one weekend and then practice it for the week and then show up and do their best. Promote a climate of achievement. And basically, yes, we support our members and their goals by making sure their awards are on time, making sure we post their tracking sheets, and just making sure that sometimes we actually go in and out of the club where they may have other things happening in their lives. And we recognize and celebrate their achievements. We have people that got their MBA and we celebrated. So we made it personal as we can. And that's where the evoking fellowship and camaraderie is all about. So we were definitely changing our culture as a group. Now, how do we convert these guests to members? I talked about a lot of things tonight. I want to show you how, if I take all these things that I just showed you in the first 30 minutes and utilize them regularly, you'll have a better opportunity to convert some guests to members. Of course, first impression is important. What does your meeting look like when a new member arrives? And we know that that's the moment of truth in real life. Maybe for us, the vice president of membership or whoever is available at that time will always invite the guest to sit down during the break. They'll talk to them after the meeting. They'll talk to them again. To get their prepared guest packets and just explain about what Toastmasters is and what responsibilities that member will have. But the key is the membership process. I used to be in sales, and someone had told me that it takes 8 touch points to have somebody trust you or become their go-to person. And what I've seen in the Toastmaster process, there's 5. First time somebody maybe sends an inquiry, a guest, the vice president of membership sends out a personal thank you within 24 hours. That's part of those letters and that communication I talked to you about earlier. Then 24 to 48 hours later, the president sends a follow-up memo, which includes that abbreviated DCP I told you about, and the testimonial page of Pathways and our personal what was unexpected as attachments to talk about and show what our group is all about. The president sends a weekly email. Well, they include the guest into the weekly email so they see what kind of club we are, what we're doing, and they see their name as an invitee and hoping they have a seat at the table. Then you set up a guest practice session with that guest and other new members. And so they can see what training and what communication process you have when you're practicing with new members overcoming their fears when they're doing speeches. And of course, number 5, the guest is invited to additional meetings and eventually they make the choice to join or not. And like I told you, 4 out of 5 people that have this type of touch points and experience and exposure and inclusion become members, have become members. And so how do we keep our clubs thriving? Well, these are the things that work for us. We're very clear that membership is cyclical, that having a culture is everlasting, so that some people, you're going to have many members, and then next thing you know, you don't have a lot of members, but you can't give up and you can't wane from the process. I want to share one thing with you. It was a testimony from somebody about joining the club, and they said, I would like to thank you for welcoming me to and including me in the meetings. Your gentle, persistent encouragement made the decision to join the club very easy. You all have a very strong and effective leadership team whose examples in no small way inspired me to take on the challenges of becoming a Toastmaster. And in closing with that, I just need to talk to the leaders of the clubs. But do you inspire your members and guests? Do you teach them new skills that help them grow in their personal lives? Because club climate changes because of what you do and not what you get. And finally, this one question that I'll ask you, which is similar that was asked of me. It's your club, and what would you like to do with it? Thank you. And with that, it's 7:45. I nailed it.
You did, Todd, and thank you very much for an awesome presentation. I just have a couple of things. One is I would like invite people to put questions in the chat box. In addition, while they're doing that, I have two questions for you.
Yes.
One is, you talked about the templates in your presentation.
Yes.
Will they be available that we can put them on our D45 drive?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if you want to send them to me, then I can do that. So
Yeah.
they are editable. You
Yes.
can edit the.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I've created, so some are in PowerPoint, some are in Word, some are in Excel.
Okay.
And actually, they'll all say KVTM, which Kennebec Valley, because I had
Right.
I did something for them, and I recreated every one of our Greater Portlands into Kennebec. So
Okay.
they're all cleaned up, and anyway, there you go. And I will send them.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all your hard work, for
Thank you.
giving us the presentations and helping all our clubs. That's terrific.
Thank you.
Jonathan, chat box, please.
Yes. Good evening. We actually have nothing in the chat box.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm wondering if people were actually paying close attention here and didn't have time to write in their questions. So this might be a chance for people to raise their hand and go ahead.
Yeah, be perfect. I do have a question from Aaron. Aaron, yes, this presentation will be on YouTube within the next 24 hours. So that's not a problem. And so please raise your hand if anybody has any questions or concerns. We can all share. You did such a wonderful job, Todd, that we don't have any questions.
That's all. It's okay. I appreciate it. No problem. And if any questions do come up later, you could forward to me, and I'd be glad to, answer them.
Not a
if outside
problem.
this meeting.
Not
All
a
right.
problem.
Okay.
Okay, Marion Taylor to everyone. Thank you, Todd, for your presentation. We found Toastmasters Basecamp has enough. Okay, has enough information to make an Excel sheet, and that one you have shown with membership pathway progress. I have started an Excel sheet like the one you have made and to track progress. Just wondering if there is an easier way. Todd?
It was hard hearing, but the Excel spreadsheet really, I don't know of any other easier way. I think Toastmasters International does have a template available. I have not retrieved it only because the one that I'm using seems to work for me. And Excel is fairly easy. You get your clubs. You go to your club and you know who your members are, and then you type in. The one thing is, all of the pathways are not pre-populated in the Excel that I use, and so just that you have to, every time it's the first pathway, you have to type it in yourself, and then when you type in this, let's say it's presentation mastery, and then the next person is presentation mastery, Excel recognizes that, but they don't have all 10 or 11 pre-populated in the spreadsheet.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? I noticed some people are sending me questions or whatever privately. Can we switch that so that Jonathan can answer them? This doesn't need to be private.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name's Jim, and I came in around 8:30, so this is my first time on here, so I'm not sure how this thing works. But you mentioned that it would be on YouTube. Under what name?
You go to District 45 website, and it's under Education. And when the Education pops up, you'll see different avenues. One is YouTube.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sergey, sorry, can't pronounce your last name with a killing Dragunov, says amazing innovation, huge work done. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergey. So,
okay. Sergey also asks, I'm not sure if the TI template fits the pathways. I may be wrong, though. Todd?
The Toastmasters International, is it the tracking sheet you're asking about?
The template fits, if the TI template fits the pathways.
Well, that was new, that there is I can get you the address or the link to where the new TI tracking is for pathways. I can send that to you separately.
Okay. Philip says, how long are your meetings? You mentioned a break after the meeting.
Yes. So our meetings are 90 minutes because we meet the first and third Monday of every month. When the culture became more open and collaborative, we actually started introducing a 30-minute social hour or social half hour. But the meetings are 90 minutes, and we typically would run that time and then have extra time for people to ask questions, practice some things, or get introduced to some other information on the Toastmasters International website.
Okay. Marion asks, how soon will the documents, the templates be available, Todd? Within this week, or?
Oh yeah, I could send them. I'll send them. Sorry, I'm a Patriots fan, and I know there's a game starting in a little bit, but I will send them tomorrow.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Yes.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments?
I have one comment.
Sure.
So I like what people are doing to make their club culture invigorating, exciting. And what I mentioned at the end of this presentation was that membership is cyclical because people, I think, they don't realize that it's not about a person standing in front of the group lecturing and teaching them something, and at the end they take a test and they say, now I'm proficient in something. It's all about self-performance and self-guidance, and that individual has to do the work. And so I hope in a period of time from now, my next presentation is on what keeps people motivated for them to personally keep thriving. And that's what I'm trying to tap into.
Okay.
So anybody has any more information on that, we're all ears as well.
Sounds great. This is a comment from Sergey, maybe
Yes.
to you, Todd, or to you, Jonathan.
Yes.
With this kind of presentations, we need to go to local TV channels and radio stations. Your thoughts from either one of you?
Wow. Geez, I never thought of that, but I could tell you, the news stations are always looking for stories, good stories, and it wouldn't be terrible to contact them and say, "Are you familiar with Toastmasters, and what do we do, and how do we help people in the workforce, in their personal lives and professional lives?" That's a great idea. I'm not opposed to that at all, and I definitely would try that.
Goal, popularizing Toastmasters.
Correct.
That's the comment from Sergey.
Yes.
Just as a note from me, I know in the area that I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, some of the times that I've approached the media in saying we're having a Toastmasters event, they're not too keen on it unless it's a community channel. But maybe if we change the focus and said, this person, like we have a local person who's in politics.
Right.
When he started out, he was a Toastmaster.
Right.
And so if we get it out there by promoting people who either in business have made an achievement within the corporate world or in government or
Right.
wherever, and
Right.
go to the media with that feel-good story.
Right. That's fantastic. In fact, I'm part of a group, it's a building science group, and the president of our club is constantly being asked to be a panelist, a head speaker, or running large meetings. And she really needs to learn how to be a presenter. She's great at building science, but not at presentations. And she's one of the new prospects that I have said, please, you have to, it's either you delegate someone else to do the presentations for you, or come join us every other Monday and learn what Toastmasters can do for you. And so hopefully she might be that good feel story at some point.
Just sounds great.
Well, thank you for having me tonight, everyone.
You're very welcome. Look forward to any other future innovations you come up with.
Appreciate
It's
it.
just as wonderful. So thank you everybody for attending at the Roadmap to Success webinar. We stay tuned for December 15th for the next webinar, and the information on that will be out soon. So please stay tuned. Have a good evening, everybody. Keep safe.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, Todd, for your presentation, and thank you for the person to think outside the box.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me and setting me up to be successful tonight. That was fantastic, Carolyn.
Yeah, well, it's I've been doing this a little bit, so it's it's still a learning curve for me, but I enjoy it. So I'm hoping by the time my term is finished that I will thought outside the box and help everybody be better presenters. So
fantastic.
It's all good. Take care. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, and you the same.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Jonathan.